Today in the NFL, all the way down to the Pee Wee football leagues, safety is an ever-growing concern. Concussion protocol and head injuries are being looked at very carefully, but many issues are being left out. Injury-prone areas, including the shoulder, players and parents and coaches are not giving enough attention and aren't aware of the issues. Many shoulder injuries have varying types of rehabs and surgeries and are very painful. From my own personal experience with the injury, I know how prevention and awareness aren't being taught to the players and parents. Hopefully, better education on the seriousness of this, but also how to prevent these shoulder injuries. There are a variety of shoulder injuries occurring today in the sport of football, but also they vary in position. The QB has common with shoulder tendonitis. According to Barnes, Kelly, Powell, and Warren during a study from 1980 to 2001 was that shoulder injuries were the second most common injury reported, 15.2% by NFL quarterbacks. This stat proves that there's need for more attention and knowledge to the players about shoulder injuries and their severeness. Other injuries for the QB are the rotator cuff tears. This is caused by overuse and repetitive motion from throwing. O-line and D-line have other injuries for themselves. They often suffer with shoulder separations and dislocations. These injuries range from slight to severe, and effects can be brutal on these players. These injuries have harmful effects. The surgeries are very gruesome and have long rehabs. Rotator cuff tears have two stages. They can either have a slight tear, where there is just a small portion of the muscle pulled from the bone, or a complete tear, or is complete detachment from the bone. This requires surgery. According to Woodson, full recovery from rotator cuff surgery can take anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks depending on the patient. These surgeries can be very long and painful. They require lots of rehab and have long-lasting effects on mobility of the shoulder. The next two common shoulder injuries, separation and dislocation. These symptoms include very severe pain, limited movement, and visible deformations. This can cause, the shoulder separation can cause the shoulder to lift or fall off the plane, and this would be the visible deformation. These injuries also heal themselves and have extensive rehabs. According to Wedrow, the total rehabilitation and recovery time from a shoulder dislocation is about 12 to 16 weeks. These injuries can be devastating, so let us look on how to prevent them before they happen. These injuries will happen and always happen, but we have to look at the root of the problem so we can better approach it on how to prevent these issues. According to Wainblatt, player-to-player contact accounts for about 58% of shoulder injuries, while ground causes about 22%. Another 20% of injuries come from overuse or training injuries. Player-to-player, 58% can be prevented by better techniques and braces. However, we'll talk about that in the next section. The 22% with the ground is kind of a constant and is most likely to stay the same. The other 20% by overuse and training is by coach workload and form during these trainings. We want to lower the overuse in training and the player-to-player contact towards the 0 percentile. However, the 22% with the ground is always freak accidents and kind of a constant. But if we can lower the other two, we can hopefully prevent as many shoulder injuries as possible. Now let's look at more in-depth options on prevention in shoulder injuries in football. The first option we have is better fitting equipment. The shoulder pads are the equipment for this area. Too small shoulder pads leave the areas unprotected and leave shoulder injuries more common. Too big, and it leaves too much blunt force and too much space in the shoulder area. Proper fitting equipment, although which most young players don't receive, is provide the optimal protection for the shoulder area. The second option for shoulder protection is shoulder braces. These prevent unwanted extension and structural support. According to Whalen, shoulder braces can speed up the recovery process, protect the shoulder from further injury, and provide compression. In my 4 years of high school football, I used a shoulder brace to play, and I always loved the support and the restriction it gave me at the same time. The third technique is better technique during activity. Tackling and blocking are two very techniques-based actions. The tackling, it is safer to lead with the shoulder than the head. However, if the legs are not properly used in the action, you leave the shoulder area vulnerable and allow for more injury. Also, in the blocking, it is used by a push-first motion, but without core activity and leg force, it leaves the shoulder vulnerable also for injury. Proper technique is crucial to football. Without the proper technique, injuries are bound to happen. To conclude, shoulder injuries have been overlooked a long time in the game of football. There are a wide range of different kinds of injuries with varying severity of these injuries. QBs suffer from different injuries than the O-line and D-line do. Prevention is available but not always used. It is up to the parents and coaches to better educate the players on how to protect themselves from shoulder injuries.